What kind of place is this?
I love Xenoblade. From its engaging stories, beautiful worlds, and its well-written characters, the games are great, and I love to see more people give the series a chance. However, the biggest thing that scares new players away from the games is the Xenoblade combat system. And honestly, I don't blame you. To someone who has never played a Xenoblade game before, the combat can look overwhelming. So many numbers, so many characters, and what is up with all this HUD? Well, in today's video, my goal is to make the easiest to understand beginner's Xenoblade combat guide possible. I'll try my best to explain Xenoblade combat so that someone who has never played a single game in the series can understand. Believe me, I used to be just like you. I was interested in Xenoblade because the games looked cool, and I heard good things about them. However, the combat system confused me. That's why I want to make this guide to help others who are interested in potentially trying out Xenoblade 3 soon and need some help. I'll only be going over the very basics of combat. This video is for beginners, so if you already have experience with the series, you probably won't learn much, but feel free to stick around in case you want a refresher. Also, don't worry about spoilers. This will be a spoiler-free guide and I'll only be showing gameplay from early in the game. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the guide. First off, congratulations on being interested in Xenoblade! You're one step closer to experiencing peak fiction. But let's talk combat. To initiate combat, walk up to an enemy and target them by pressing L or R. You can also change targets before or mid-battle by pressing L or R2. Once you're targeting the enemy you wish to fight, press the A button to initiate combat. If you accidentally enter combat with an enemy you do not wish to fight, do your best to run as far away as possible from the enemy until they lose interest in you. You may come across a level 80 monkey trying to kill you, so in Xenoblade games, running away is a valid tactic. For the sake of trying to make this as easy to understand as possible, in this video I will be comparing the Xenoblade combat with the combat system in the Pokemon games. Now I know what you're thinking, the combat in Pokemon is nothing like the combat in Xenoblade. Pokemon is turn-based while Xenoblade is real-time. And you would be correct. However, I feel like Xenoblade and Pokemon combat share more similarities than you might think. Plus, basically everyone knows how Pokemon battles work. This way, I'll have something to make comparisons to that you already understand in hopes that I'll make understanding Xenoblade combat a little easier. So now that we are in combat, let's set the stage. Imagine a real-time combat Pokemon game where the Pokemon in battle automatically use basic attacks against each other while they wait for the trainer to tell them to use a specific move. This is basically Xenoblade combat. As long as you are close enough and standing still, your character will automatically attack the enemy. This is called an auto attack. You can tell if you are standing close enough to the enemy for your character to auto attack if this symbol appears on the bottom right of your screen. If your character is not auto attacking, it is probably because you are too far away or because you are moving. Your character also has a set time between auto attacks, and depending on the weapon they are using, they may attack faster or slower. Auto attacks are just the basic attacks, and while they are important in their own way, they are not your main source of dealing damage. Easily the most important thing when it comes to Xenoblade combat is your arts. These will be your main source of dealing damage as well as being needed for other things. In terms of Pokemon, arts are basically the equivalent to your Pokemon moves. And just like Pokemon moves, different arts deal different amounts of damage and have various uses, like inflicting status effects and healing. However, just like Pokemon, you have multiple arts to choose from, but can only have 4 arts equipped at a time. Well, technically 3 because one of those 4 is special, but I'll go over that later. You can use your arts by pressing the A, B, X, and Y buttons. Once you use an art, you cannot use it again until a set amount of time passes and the art becomes active for use again. This is why it is important to learn what each art does and try to use them optimally, rather than just spamming arts the second they recharge. Let me give you an example. You start the game as Noah, who has the art Edge Thrust. This art's special property is that it deals more damage if you use it while standing behind the enemy. You can see this property described underneath the name of the art in the HUD. Because of this, it is more optimal to position yourself behind the enemy while using the art because you'll deal much more damage this way. Make sure to check what each of your arts does and use them optimally to have the best chance of success in battle, just like you would in and Pokemon. Well, now that you know about both auto attacks and arts, let's combine them. If you use an art right as your character's auto attack hits the enemy, you'll cancel the auto attack animation and go straight into using the art. This is called an auto attack cancel. Doing this makes your attacks flow quickly into each other and will speed up how fast you can damage the enemy. To tell if you canceled correctly, a circle ring effect will appear in the middle of the screen. Pulling off cancels is very satisfying, and something you should try to do as often as possible. Well, I guess after that, there's no better time than now to explain the importance of positioning in combat. Unlike Pokemon, in Xenoblade you can move your character around while in combat. This is very important for numerous reasons. One being described before when we talked about getting into position to use an art with back attack. If you want to easily tell your character's position in relation to the enemy you are targeting, check the arrow at the bottom right of the screen. If the arrow is pointing up, you are in front of the enemy. If the arrow is pointing to the left or to the right, you are on the side of the enemy. If the arrow is pointing down, you are behind the enemy. Positioning is also important because you may notice some of your party members use arts that provide an area of effect buff. If you position yourself inside the circle on the ground, you may receive a buff like dealing additional damage or healing your health depending on the art your party member used. Since moving your character around is so vital, Xenoblade 3 gives you the handy ability to perform a dash mid-combat by pressing down on the right analog stick. This helps move around the battlefield faster and can be very handy for speeding up combat. But be aware, you cannot auto-attack or use an art while dashing. While in combat, you may notice the enemy keeps facing towards you and attacking you, thus making it impossible for you to get behind them to perform a back attack art. This is because you have aggro. Aggro indicates which party member will get attacked by the enemy. You can tell who has the enemy's aggro based on the targeting line coming off the enemy. If the line is connected to you, the enemy will face you and attack you. Ideally, you want Lance, who is your party's defender role, to have the aggro at all times. If the enemy is aggroed on a defender role character, the targeting line will be blue, which is good. If the targeting line is red, that means the enemy is aggroed onto someone who is not a defender, which is bad. There are multiple different ways to affect aggro. Generally, dealing damage and using arts will increase your aggro, making the enemy more likely to attack you. But there are specific arts that will make your aggro increase a lot that defender role characters use. Alright, now since I keep talking about the defender role, we need to discuss party member roles. In Xenoblade, there are 3 roles: attacker, defender, and healer. Similar to Pokemon, different characters are better at different things. Just like how some Pokemon have a really high attack stat but low defense or vice versa, certain Xenoblade characters are better at attacking, healing, or defending. The rules are pretty self-explanatory. It is the attacker's job to deal most of the damage, the defender's job to tank most of the hits, and the healer's job to heal the party and make sure everyone stays alive. For example, the healer role has arts that can restore your party member's health, and if a party member falls in battle, only a healer has the ability to revive them. The defender role can generally take a lot more hits than other roles, and has arts that let them keep aggro so other party members don't get attacked. Finally, the attacker has arts that deal lots of damage, but can die pretty quickly if they get aggro. Ideally, you want to play to your character's role's strengths. Hey, do you remember way back when I said you can only have 4 arts equipped at a time? Well, technically 3 because one of those 4 is special. Well, it's finally time to talk about that special art. This special art, which is mapped to your A button, is called a talent art. Talent arts are basically your character's super special move and are stronger than normal arts. However, because they are so good, they have some downsides. Unlike normal arts, which are all charged and ready to use at the start of battle, your talent art is not. Talent arts also don't just charge over time like normal arts do. Instead, you have to do something called a roll action to charge them. Remember how I said it was good to play to your roll strengths? Well, this is another reason why. By doing the things your character's role is supposed to do, your talent art will charge up. Here's an example. The attacker's role is to deal lots of damage, so actions that deal damage effectively, like positioning yourself behind the enemy and using a back attack, will charge your talent arts. For a healer, doing things like healing your allies or giving them buffs will charge your talent arts. And for a defender, doing things like drawing the enemy's aggro or blocking attacks will charge your talent art. Basically, the game rewards you for playing well. By the way, if you're still watching the video, good job making it this far. We have discussed a lot today, but we do have one final thing to cover. Earlier I said that arts are similar to Pokemon moves, and just like Pokemon moves, some can deal status effects. One of these status effects an art can inflict is called Break. This is where combos begin. Performing an art combo on an enemy can be very satisfying to pull off, and they are very powerful. First, a party member will need to use an art that inflicts Break, like I said. Luckily, the character you start with, Noah, can do just that. His art, Sword Strike, inflicts Break if used while standing on the side of the enemy. You can tell if the enemy has the Break status if this meter on the top left of the enemy's health appears. The Break status effect will go away over time, and you can tell how much time you have by checking the meter. Once the enemy has this effect, the next step is to have one of your allies use an art that inflicts Topple. The Topple status effect will only work if the enemy has the Break status effect already applied. This is why it is important to possibly save using your Topple art for the right moment. When an enemy is toppled, he will fall down to the ground unable to move or attack, and the Break meter will be replaced with a Topple meter. The next step in this combo is to use an art that inflicts Daze while the enemy is toppled, and finally, inflict Burst while the enemy is dazed. If you can pull all this off, you just completed a full art combo, which will help you deal massive damage. At its core, Xenoblade combat is all about management. Managing auto attacks, your arts, cooldown meters, characters' positions, your party's health, and more. It takes a lot of focus and multitasking to keep everything in check, but that is what makes it so engaging. Plus, pulling off combos, planning ahead, and having everything work out how you wanted it can be very satisfying. That's all I'll be going over in my beginner's guide. Congrats on making it through the whole thing. There are still plenty more techniques and options that will become unlocked as you progress through the story that I didn't go over in this video that gives the combat even more creativity and freedom in how you can defeat enemies. If you are still confused about some things I went over in today's video, don't worry. Xenoblade 3 has an amazing tutorial system that lets you revisit tutorial tips anytime you want in the menus. There is even an entire training drill mode that lets you practice any past tutorials all over again. This will probably be the only Xenoblade guide I make. Well, unless this video does really well. But if you want more in-depth and advanced guides than this one, I'll put a link to Xenoblade YouTuber Enel's channel in the description. His channel is the best place to find guides on any game in the Xenoblade series. But that's it for me. I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. My name is Mr. Nice Guy, and I will talk to you later. Shoutouts to Ashton, Alistair, Allison, David, That's Just Health, Jessica, Redscape, Velvet, Nintendo Boy, Sandra, Finn, Taco Gaming, Future, Quinn, Cheese, Lou, Neve, Snakes to Victory, Luca, Goldilocks, Tristan Bray, Darth Noodle, Super Stretcher Banana, Fluffy Deer, Melissa, Leo, Ketchup, Heavy Sammer, Aiden, or Wait Possum, Brooke, and Lauren for supporting me on Patreon or being a member on my channel.